to change policy that will support millions of families putting food on the table or raising billions of dollars for the world's most vulnerable children. Next slide. And here at Results, we ground ourselves in our values to work against oppression. We pledge to create a safe space for all people to participate in Results, particularly those who have experienced poverty. So we hold these values because poverty and oppression are linked. In order to end poverty, we believe that we must also actively work to end oppression, and all of us have a role to play in that. So we don't subscribe to the pull yourself up by your bootstraps theory, because we know that that's not a reality for most people. Our system prioritizes the needs of some over the needs of others, and this results in drastic differences in resources and opportunities. So to help our volunteers grow in these values, we have online resources, and we also regularly host anti-oppression focused trainings. We do this so that we can learn together as a community and call each other into this really important work. So if you're interested in learning more about these resources or exploring a little bit, you can go to this link at the bottom of the slide, results.org/values. So anti-oppression, as I said, that's one of our values. So we focus on different forms of oppression. Maybe ableism is an example, sexism, colonialism, saviorism, racism, obviously. So you can learn about all those different things on our website, as well as how to step in if you observe oppression as a bystander, what you can do to step into those situations, or if you're experiencing oppression, how you can step in for yourself. And we can go to the next slide. So when you join Results, you are not only joining a network of volunteers here in the United States, because we do have a presence in all 50 states, you're also joining a global movement of people and organizations working against poverty. So no matter where in the US you live, you'll be able to join our network of advocates around the country. We have nearly 700 volunteers in all 50 states and over 80 Results chapters. So I want y'all to pay attention. The little red dots are where we have established groups. Mississippi does not have a red dot. So that's where me and my team come in. I'm on what's called our expansion team. So we work to go into states where there's not an established group. We have a presence in the state. We have a presence in all 50 states, but that might mean we just have one interested person or two interested people. We don't have an established group. So my team, we go in and establish a group, and we are assigned states. So my states are Mississippi, Louisiana, Maine, Rhode Island, and Hawaii, all over the place. So the goal right now for me is twofold in Mississippi. One is establishing an established results group. And our goal for having groups in each state is because we're influencing Congress. Congress listens to their constituents way more than they listen to anybody else. So the more people we have in a state saying the same thing, the more powerful our voice is going to be. And that makes a lot of difference if we influence Congress people around the nation towards the same thing. That moves us towards our larger goal. So on one hand, the goal is to establish a group in Mississippi. And we're also about to start state level work in Mississippi. So I have two goals right now, but we'll touch on the state level work a little bit later. And we can go to the next slide. So in addition to having, you'll have to press it a few times. Yep, one more. There we go. Thank you, Michael. So in addition to having a presence all over the United States, we also have Results International, which are affiliate organizations in Canada, the UK, Japan, and Australia, who are also advocating for policies within their own governments around these issues. We also work in partnership with our network of action partners, who are organizations working in global health and development. And together, we are all organizing to influence and pass policies with our governments that will bring an end to poverty. And we can go to the next slide. So two of the most important things that we have as advocates are volunteers. Let me pause here. So I did mention that we have values. Our goal is to alleviate poverty, but we work on these three policy areas: education, economic opportunity and security, and health and nutrition. And like I said, we do work on both global and domestic policies. On the global side, we have three main focus areas that usually never change. They changed a little bit for the pandemic, but that was an emergent situation. So on the global side, we focus on global education, global health and global nutrition. And as I mentioned, we try to make sure that oppression is never present in the policies that we promote. So you can see this show up very easily in our global policy work. For example, in global education, anything that we support, any bills we support, any funding that we try to push forward, we make sure that little girls are going to have the same access to education as little boys. So making sure sexism isn't present, making sure that ableism isn't present, making sure that when we're working with school systems, we're ensuring that kids with disabilities have the same access and the same quality education as children that don't have disabilities. We have that here in the United States, but we need to make sure that children everywhere have that, right? And that teachers have the resources that they need to make sure that they can support these children. So that's just an example of how those anti-oppression values fit into our work. And now we can go to the next slide. So our goals are on the domestic side to promote economic justice through the tax code. So right now that looks like the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit. Next year, we are going to include direct file in that. And is anybody here familiar with direct file? Okay, so go ahead, Zaria, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just answering your question. No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, so direct file passed in April of this year. They did a pilot program and the pilot program was successful. So they put it into practice and it's something that's through the IRS. It's regulatory. So regulatory laws, of course, are just processes that state departments or departments say that they're going to follow. So direct file did pass in April of 2024, and it's something through the IRS that allows you to file your taxes. So rather than having to go through a tax preparer and then taking a large chunk of your income tax, you file this through the IRS and it automatically sends it to your state and to the federal department. So you don't have to do two. You don't have to pay those expensive filing fees. And for people who are low income, that makes a lot of difference because they can keep their income tax money in their pocket rather than giving it to a tax preparer who might take a third or half or something like that. And that can make a big difference. The thing is, though, that states have to opt into direct file. And right now, 12 states have opted into it. Mississippi is not one. So over the next year, we're going to be trying to make that a federal, not a mandate, try to push for that. So it's not opt-in. States are implementing this across the board. So that's what we're going to do on the domestic side. On the global side, our hope or our goal is to promote equity in international anti-poverty programs. I kind of already touched on that with our global health, global nutrition, global education. And in regard to global health, we focus on AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and vaccinations. And we can go to the next slide. So I know that our work seems very policy heavy, but two of the most important things that we have as advocates or as nonprofit leaders are our voices and our stories. And to be powerful, you don't have to have any type of experience in advocacy. What we each bring to the table are our personal reasons for caring about our communities and about these issues. And you and Ashley and Zaria, Michael, y'all were compelled to join this webinar in the middle of your day for a reason, but also to do this work. And those reasons are very strong. And that's usually a bulk of what we need to just keep us going, because we know we run into roadblocks constantly. So for me, I believe that access to basic needs is a basic human right. And I decided years ago that I wanted to spend my life fighting to make sure that that basic need was met, no matter someone's socioeconomic status, their location, their background, or anything else. And that's why I do this work. So I just want to take an opportunity to learn a little bit more about each of you. If anybody wants to come off mute and share a little bit more about their why for doing this work, because it's not easy, I invite you to do so.
Yeah, so I work for a small nonprofit here in Jackson, Mississippi called Grown Up Knowing, and I'm the program manager for it. So what we do is we provide free educational programs to families across the state. So we deal with bullying and abuse, and then for our older kids, we have a comprehensive sex education program. And the thing is, we focus so much on programming and just, fundraising and marketing. We really don't do advocacy. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to join this webinar to learn more.
Do you work with Alexis Hicks?
Her name sounds familiar.
Okay, she does. She works for a nonprofit. No, she works for Teen Mississippi or Teen Health
Teen
Mississippi.
Health. Yeah,
Mhm.
Teen Health Mississippi. Yes, ma'am, I'm
She's one of
familiar.
our she's one of our advocates. And we had her to come to DC. She met with Wicker's office and I think one more office to lobby on issues a few Aprils ago. And when I was in Jackson, for the first community conversation, we met with her that day as well, just to touch base and see each other in person again. But yeah, I love that. Sorry. And all of that is so needed. And it takes all pieces of the puzzle for us to get where we want to go.
Yes, I agree.
Did you want to share, Ashley?
So what I was going to say is I'm Ashley McLaughlin. I work for the ACLU of Mississippi. And of course, the ACLU of Mississippi is focused on fighting for the civil liberties and fighting against discriminations through the courts, legislation, and everyday policies that get pushed for those who want to protect their civil liberties and their rights. So one of the reasons I'm here, of course, is being an advocate in an organization that is sometimes legal top heavy. We have to find a space that always reminds us how to, remain thriving, remain relevant, and remain focused on the advocacy efforts that are out there. My background has definitely been rooted in being within the community as I have worked, in city and state government. So I've gotten to see how those policies work, how those administrators and how those lawmakers operate from one side, and devote my attention to working on the other side, which is also why I studied urban and regional planning, because it had a direct hand in community development. So all that encompassed gave me a sense of passion and thrive for the work. And that's why I continue doing it, other than the anger that happens during the sessions. But thankfully, I have emotional intelligence where I don't lose my mind and just focus on the issues and focus on how to make those incremental steps.
I love that, Ashley. Thank you for sharing that. I actually have two colleagues who are attorneys by trade, and one dealt with cases that involved minors and just making sure that they had a voice. Well, they have a voice, amplifying their voice and just supporting them through some really hard situations. And the other one dealt with housing policies and making sure that the homeless community got what they needed. In our work next year, and this might interest you, every year, usually in November, we meet up in person and plan our strategic plan for the next year. So we're moving that to October. So we'll be meeting about this, but we're really trying to focus on how we can push forward policy that will decriminalize homelessness, because homelessness is becoming more and more criminalized. I mean, their rights are being taken away left and right. Abuse of them is becoming not only socially acceptable, but almost legal, or I would say legal in some areas. So just hearing parts of what you said that might be of interest to you, and I would love to hear your perspective about that some more as we move towards that work. But thank y'all for sharing. That's one of my favorite parts about meeting people and hearing about why people get in this work, because it motivates me, because it can be draining, especially depending on what season Congress is in and what's happening politically. And we have to celebrate small wins. And when you hear about people working towards the same goal in a different way, it's invigorating for me. So thank y'all for sharing. Did you want to share, Michael? Michael's like, I don't know.
Sure, I mean, I don't mind sharing. Um, I am motivated So I've chosen to spend my life in Mississippi, probably like many of you, from a desire to serve the state, to improve where I can. And one of the areas that I'm really passionate about working in is developing or contributing to the development of an infrastructure to serve the LGBTQ community here in the state. For a long time, there's not been an infrastructure of organizations or services devoted to that particular community. So I work with the LGBTQ Fund separately outside of my work with the Alliance. And that's exactly what we do. We develop resources and provide grants to establish new or support organizations who are already in existence to serve our communities in various ways, whether it's through, healthcare or advocacy, although there are not enough of our organizations doing advocacy. So that's something we've been thinking about how we can develop. So this is timely. But yeah, that's my why is essentially providing, helping to develop an infrastructure and a network of LGBTQ professionals who are advocating for ourselves and making a better, safer, less prejudiced Mississippi for our people.
Yeah, that's important. And that's what this work is. That's what good advocacy work is, right? Just looking at marginalized communities and figuring out a way to make things equitable and give everybody the seat at the table that they deserve, and making sure that needs are met no matter anything. We're human beings, right? And one of the things that I love about results is that we do skills training. So we do have strategic actions that we ask advocates to take each month that move us towards our strategic goal, but we don't just say, okay, do this, do this, do this. We equip people with skills because, as I said, like, poverty is very broad. Results can only work on so many issues and do so well. It takes different organizations working on different things for us to see the goal that we have achieved. And the skills training that we provide can be used towards various things, like getting published in the media, having good lobby meetings, getting lobby meetings, all these other things. Those things can be taken and applied to any area. And that's going to help us move towards this goal. So that's one of my favorite things, because there are so many things that we don't work on that I'm passionate about, or that other people are passionate about, and all of them are good. Like, I'm passionate about prison reform. Results doesn't do that. But I can use my skills to move that forward and to equip other organizations to move that forward and to create this network that you were talking about, Michael, to move those things forward. So thank y'all for sharing. That's my favorite part. So that's going to give me energy for the rest of the day. I appreciate that because it's gloomy here today. But we can go back into the PowerPoint. So I've talked about what we do, who we are, what our focus is, but like, how do we actually get it done? And we do that with an advocacy strategy. We do have an advocacy model. And we can go to the next slide. So we believe that Congress is, I'll get into this in the next slide, but Congress is powerful and they pass laws, they create laws. So we believe that informed and connected communities, kind of like what Michael was just talking about, we're informed, we're connected, there's agency there, there's power there. When people come together with a shared goal and they're informed and connected, and then they engage in action with Congress, like those letters to the editor, getting published in the media, having meetings with their congressional offices, sending emails, building relationship, those informed communities engaging with Congress in those same things, having the same voice, like I said earlier, which is why it's important to have a presence in every state, that equals policy change. And we've seen success in that. So that's our model. Inform communities, get them connected, then get them engaged. And over time, this is not, like I said, a short game. This is a long game. We will see policy change. And we can go to the next slide. So we believe that the government has an important role to play in ending poverty. The issues of inequality that we're facing today are systematic, and we will not see change without making the policies that shape our world more equitable. So we work on policies on a federal level. So you'll be working with your senators and representatives if you are an advocate of ours. Every person who lives in the U.S. has obviously 2 senators and 1 representative that represent them. So the United States Congress is amongst one of the most powerful bodies of people in the world, and they make decisions on where trillions of dollars are spent. The decisions and priorities of our political leaders shape our future and our children's future and their children's future. And what they're working on and deciding today will have an impact on the lives of you, me, our families, our communities for years to come. So we don't want them making those decisions about what issues and what priorities should be on their own without hearing from the communities that they represent, and especially the people who are most often left out of those decisions. People who are struggling financially or facing poverty or experiencing discrimination. So as advocates, we're mobilizing to ensure that our voices, our priorities, and our experiences are heard. You can go to the next slide, and you might have to push it maybe like 3 times. Yeah, 3. Thank you. So in everything that we do, we root ourselves in relationships. That's the first step. With members of Congress, the media, our community, and our relationships with one another, we humanize ourselves in this work. So often congressional officials hear stats and all these other things. It's easy to distance yourself from that. We bring forth the truth that these are people. We humanize ourselves. We're going to your offices. You're forming a relationship with us. So we're a relatively small staff. Our grassroots, our advocates, are building relationships with these offices themselves with our support. So over time, Michael, if you're an advocate, you're going to be reaching out to this office repeatedly. They're going to form a relationship with you. Through those relationships, we're able to build trust. Our members of Congress get to know us and we get to know them. We are persistent. We are not going away. A relationship will be formed, but we also make sure that our advocates are knowledgeable about what they're talking about. And that comes with that trust as well. So by establishing that trust, we're able to gain and build influence. Members of Congress recognize that our advocates are educated on the issues, they have clear, direct asks, and they realize that we are persistent and we will continue to engage. And they trust that we know what we're talking about. And over time, we have seen successes. And one thing that I love about our advocacy is that we don't go in with just, okay, this is the problem, and these are the stats to show that this is a problem. We already have what the solution is. So we're going to go in there and say, this is the problem. This is how it affects your constituents, but this is the solution. Will you act on it or will you not? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's no. Sometimes I need more information, but either way, there's benefit because sometimes results advocates are the only ones who come in talking about this issue. So I had a meeting with Wicker's office a few months ago, and I was talking about, was it the child tax credit? It was either the child tax credit or the renter tax credit. And he was saying that this was the first time that office had ever heard of that particular framing of the issue. He said 95% of people or organizations who come in talking about taxes are talking about business taxes. So sometimes results advocates are the only ones talking about this issue. So even if the answer is no, we've educated them. And once you know something, you can't unknow it. So I believe that it does have some impact on them at some point, even if that answer to that direct ask is no. So we can go to the next slide. So I've talked about what we do, why we do it, why we choose Congress, but are we actually successful? I'm thankful to say that the answer is yes. We will turn 44 years old this year. And through the power of advocacy, we know that we can make a difference in the lives of millions of people because we've seen it since we've been doing this work. Fall of 2022, we were organizing around the UN, United Nations Malnutrition Prevention Act. And they had a meeting in New York, and we saw huge success in that. Congress passed the Global Malnutrition Prevention and Treatment Act. And that was because, in part of results advocacy, we, like I said, are very persistent. We are relentless. And then advocates also moved over 1/3 of the House U.S. Senate, that's 34 senators to be exact, to take a stand for bold action on that same legislation. And in September of 2023, the U.S. pledged to reach 45 million people with quality TB treatment and testing. And in February of 2024, the House passed the child tax credit expansion, and that happened in large part because of results advocates, because as I said, we're sometimes one of the only organizations talking about these issues. So those are just successes from the past few years. But if you go to that link on the bottom of the slide, you can literally see all the successes that we've had since our founding. And if you go on that page, you're going to see a few successes as you scroll down, but there's a file that you can click on to literally look at all of them that we've ever had. And I think that's pretty motivating. So you can go to the next slide. So I'm really excited about this. Michael has heard me talk about this a teeny tiny bit. And I just realized my next slide is not done, Michael. So you can just skip over that one completely after we get through this one. But state level work. So as I mentioned, for 44 years, we've been focusing on federal level policy. We have not done anything with state level policy. For the first time in 2025, we will be working on state level policy, but we'll only be starting it in 3 states. Mississippi is one of those states. The other 2 states are Washington State and Indiana. And we chose these states for different reasons. Mississippi is very rural. We're also the poster child for a lot of things that are not good. So let's start here. And right now in 2024, we're working to set the groundwork and foundation for that work in 2025. So in 2024, we're laying the foundation that looks like figuring out where we're going to go policy-wise, what we're going to focus on, but also what partnerships would be strategic. The alliance is a strategic partnership, but also what relationships would be helpful. So like-minded organizations like the 2 that you all represent today. Partners who are working towards the same thing, because we can't do this alone. Nobody can do this work alone. So 2024, laying the relationship foundation as well as the policy foundation. So I've been attending a few of the community conversations that the Alliance is hosting. So going to different places in the state, listening to the issues so that we can make informed decisions on where we go policy-wise, but also listening to people in the room who would make good partners for our work, who work on different things that we don't work on, but that's equally important. So we've thought through different policy focuses for the state, being possibly education, possibly health, possibly nutrition, economic mobility. So we think, this is not full yet. Like I said, our planning meeting happens in October, but I think the best approach, the most strategic approach right now is going to be having the state as a whole still work on our federal level policy, obviously, but also work on separate state level policy. You all are the first people that I've told this to. But federally, working on direct file that I mentioned earlier, trying to establish that across the board. But on a state level, even if we don't get that federally passed, pushing our state to opt into that, because our residents could benefit. So direct file on a regulatory level. And then on a legislative level, focusing on either a flat tax or a grocery tax. Mississippi is one of the few states that still has a grocery tax, and it does not make sense. So if we address a flat tax or a grocery tax, that would affect a lot of different things. That would affect economic mobility, because people have more money in their pocket because they're not being taxed on their food. It would also help health, and it will also benefit nutrition. So I'm just trying to think about the most strategic way to do things that would benefit the whole state, because certain parts of our state are vastly different from other parts, but also address numerous issues with one policy vehicle. So that's a little bit of what we're thinking about. And right now, I would love to hear y'all's feedback on what y'all think would be beneficial for Mississippi state level policy. We would still be applying our same advocacy strategy and grassroots approach and all those other things, and same skills training, but just on a state level. So we can skip past the next slide and then go to the next slide. Okay, yes, thank you. So getting involved, you did it so seamlessly. I didn't even see the other one. So as I mentioned, my goal for Mississippi work is twofold. So I just mentioned the state level work and getting more people's opinions and more people's voices on how they think we can implement that well, what they think it should be focused on. But also, as I mentioned, it's to grow a group. So if y'all have heard anything that I've said and you can think about anybody who would be interested possibly in being one of our advocates, when we say the word advocate, we use different words interchangeably. Advocate is the same as a grassroots, it's the same as a volunteer, which can be confusing. We should just settle on one, I suppose. But if you've heard me talking and you have thought about somebody who might be interested in getting involved, this piece is for them. So you can go to the next slide. So advocacy with results is different from other volunteer opportunities. First, we do indirect service. I call it indirect service. I've worked in nonprofits. I've also worked in local government, but when other nonprofits that I worked for, we do a direct service. So in the moment, what does this person need? We can give it to them right now. Results doesn't do that. We do what I call an indirect service. So we don't have instant gratification. We're not there with the person in the room. We're not able to provide a service to them, but we're able to help them or support them down the long term, in the long term, so they don't need those services. And I kind of look at direct services as Band-Aids. And Band-Aids are important when you're bleeding, right? You don't want to just go around bleeding. It meets the need in that moment. Results doesn't do that. We more so focus on the root cause. Why are people needing these Band-Aids? What policy can be passed so they don't need soup kitchens, or so they don't need food pantries, they don't need homeless shelters. So you need people on the ground doing that direct service, giving those Band-Aids, stopping the bleeding. But you also need people working on making sure that people don't need those Band-Aids anymore. So that's what Results does. And because of that, our volunteerism doesn't look the same. You don't come to a place and then serve for an hour or two and then go home. Most of the meetings, especially since COVID happened, on Zoom, depending on the group that you join or that somebody joins, they would attend a meeting on Zoom probably once a month. There are some in-person opportunities, like when I came down to Jackson for the community conversation, I made an in-person opportunity since I was going to be there. As I said, we flew an advocate into DC. We do that a few times a year to have people meet with their congressional offices on the Hill in person. But also during August recess, we have in-district meetings with the offices there in the state. So there are in-person opportunities. We also learn about poverty issues. We do that through webinars, through online print resources, and we take action together, like those lobby meetings and like that media writing and like community organizing. And community organizing is just outreach. But you can go to the next slide. So the groups, like I said, have their different monthly meetings, but our national webinars happen the first Saturday of each month unless there's a holiday. And these national webinars are an hour and a half, first Saturday of each month, and they're an opportunity for all of our different advocates to come together in one virtual room. And it's the best way to get everybody on the same page for that month. Like I said, we have strategic actions each month, and just give any policy updates, because things do change in the policy world, obviously. So maybe last month we were waiting on CTC legislation to be created. Well, the next month it might have been created, but some of the stuff that we wanted wasn't good, or what they did create wasn't good at all. What's our next move? So this is an opportunity for everybody to get on the same page and get some direction for the month. And we can go to the next slide. So obviously for groups to function well, we do have different volunteer roles. So you could just be a regular advocate, just come to the meetings, do the action. We also have group leaders who lead the group, making sure that everything that needs to be done for that month is done, facilitating the monthly meetings that I mentioned before, keeping members engaged, supporting them. We also have congressional point people. So that will be the person that I use Michael as an example of, reaching out to the office, building that relationship, because name recognition is important. So this one person will be reaching out to this one office. And then we have outreach and partnerships coordinators, which is the role that I'm most passionate about. That's what I support directly. And they just kind of do what I'm doing right now, except it could be in person or it could be over Zoom. So they would essentially be the face of results in their town or maybe their state if it's a state level group. So just talking to people about results, how they can get involved, why it's important, getting people in the community to take action. So again, if you've thought of anybody who might be interested in this, maybe this is a role, one of the roles that they could take. We also have others. And we can go to the next slide. So as I said, results isn't in an organization where you would just come and then do an hour and go home. Our advocacy is really spread out. We say it's about 5 to 6 hours per month. That could go up or down based on what an advocate's availability is. Life things happen, maybe they can't put in 5. Maybe they really love what we're doing right then and they have more time, so they go over 6 hours. But that 5 to 6 hour range would include that national webinar that I mentioned, reading about the issues for that month, whatever update there is. If you have a lobby meeting, that would be a lobby prep call. So you and your group would decide who's taking what parts of the meeting, what are we going to say. Then you would have a practice leading up to the meeting. Then you'd have the actual lobby meeting. And as I mentioned, you would have group meetings. So that's a little bit of an overview of what it would look like if somebody did want to be an advocate. And you can go to the next slide, which I think might be the last one. Yep, that's it. So I feel like I just said a lot. And if anybody has any questions or comments or suggestions, again, about how we can move forward our state policy work, I'm happy to hear it.
I was going to say, I think that your ideas of the areas are really important, and a lot of what we've heard chatter about, because the main commissions and committees for the summer have been chosen, and one of those is focused on healthcare. So that is something definitely to be on the lookout for, as well as that is Aria.
Aria.
Some of, or a lot of the conversation has been devoted around those tax credits, as well as lowering those taxes by grocery. And I believe the Speaker of the House has expressed his interest in it from their last conversation. So you're definitely on track for the areas that have been up for discussion, and there are so many others. So it's hard to pinpoint them all, but those are the two main ones I heard you speak about and that I've heard a lot of chatter about.
Love that. Glad we're on the right path. That'll make it easier for sure.
Yeah, my question is, have you like partnered with any like other nonprofit, maybe agencies across the state?
Not yet. So we joined the Alliance officially. So now we're officially a member as of last month or this month.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome to the club.
Yes. So we officially joined the Alliance. And right now, like I said, we are in the process of just trying to get out there a little bit more to see what groups or organizations or anything like that it would be good to be involved in. So we have, right now we're just going off of my connections, my personal connections, but we're in the market to see who we could partner with. So if you have any suggestions, I welcome those.
I will put them in the chat.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like we have to do this work together for sure. Okay. I'm just seeing your message, Ashley, from earlier. I am new to this platform, so I had to figure out how to access the chat.
It was an adjustment for me too. I came from Zoom land.
Same.
I actually had to download it to participate in some things. I was like, wait, wait a minute. Am I getting something else? Yes, I'm getting something else.
I know. I attended the I don't know what the word surprise or special webinar that the Alliance had maybe like 2 weeks ago about the 2 pieces of legislation that had passed. And I was trying to log in and found out that I had to download it. So I was late. I didn't know that part, but I made it. I made it.
We should have included that. We should have included a link to download it. That's what we should do next time. If you're new to this, download here.
Yes. I was like, oh my gosh. And I hate being late for meetings.
Ashley and Zaria, I'm curious. I think you might have answered this, but just for the sake of clarity, do either of your organizations already do any advocacy along the areas
No, we
related to
do
your?
no advocacy at all, none whatsoever.
I think I didn't get all the question. Advocacy in what area?
In the areas that your mission serves.
Yes. So because our areas are so broad, we definitely have to tailor them down. But some of our main areas that the agency and the affiliates have been focusing on are criminal justice reform, education reform. So of course we talk about ban books, censorship, LGBTQ rights, reproductive rights for women, equity, voting rights. So pretty much every space. And so some of the larger coalitions I participated in this past year was voting, healthcare, and I believe there's reentry. So yes, there's a lot of areas I touch on, and I guess that's why it's unique for me because I've never really gotten to focus on one policy area. I've had to learn many of them. So housing is included, like she said, homelessness. So there's quite a few areas that we get to focus on and that I get to create an agenda around each year.
Yeah. All of that sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to look at y'all's website. You too, Zaria, for sure.
And so I didn't drill down on how I'm going to do that this year. What we're doing is focusing on voting because we got a lot of traction with early voting, not as much with expungement and reentry for ex-offenders. But how we're going to navigate that is a campaign towards early voting, which is sharing that information, helping citizens understand, spreading the message, participating in hearings. And one of our attorneys wants to hold a forum to help get ex-offenders either registered or before their legislature so that they can go through that process. But yes, there's advocacy that has to be connected to it because the law itself has not been easily moving. So that's the voting campaign for this year.
Yeah. And I think part of that is, like I mentioned earlier, just getting more people saying things. It has to be repetitive. They have to see that people care about this, numerous people care about this, and they're not going away. And Michael, you might remember who it was, but at the Jackson Community Conversation, I know he was from Hines. He was sitting on the same row as me, Hines Community College. He said one of the officers, I think it was Thad Cochran, said that they didn't pay attention to the issue, didn't try to move on the issue, didn't look into the issue until they had gotten 7 phone calls about it. So I think sometimes that's why those numbers are important, and they have to be saying the same thing. Like we have to be on one accord, And that takes that connectedness, like Michael mentioned, and also just setting a goal. And I think that's when we start to see things move. When they see, I kind of don't have a choice because the people who employ me, because we are their bosses, and I don't know how many jobs will hire somebody and then never check in to see if they're doing what we hired them to do. But I think the more they see, okay, this is not going away, so I have to move on it, the more we'll see people move on it.
Yeah, and y'all are doing, all of y'all, everyone here is doing important stuff and being an additional organization that's a touch point in that, you know, and connecting with, like, if it takes 7 people contacting so and so to make something happen, it probably helps that it's not 7 times the same person contacting them, so that it's 7 different organizations doing relevant work. And so that's, yeah, like the work that you're doing, bringing people together at results is valuable. And at ACLU and Teen Health too.
Yeah, I was going to say that's definitely the practice that we try to lean on. So we have 2 arms of doing that. One of which is through our lobbyists, making sure we and our partners are all saying the same message with the same context of that message, in connection with our lawmakers who agree with it and who are our friendly lawmakers. But one of our back end tricks is we have a system where we can connect to our affiliates in different states. And so what we'll do is we'll send out a message to them and say, hey, we need your action. And we can get up to, I think one of our items this year, we got up to 645 emails into the speaker's email box. And so, of course, that makes a person say, whoa, what's going on? Why is everybody here? And why are they talking about this issue? And matter of fact, that issue actually died. But on the back end, someone else did the same advocacy work and showed up and, you know, got the bill re-entered. So you are absolutely correct. That work is necessary and strategic, and you got to keep focus on it each and every time you do it.
Yep, it works. All right. Well, like Michael said, I want to honor everybody's time. So we have 4 minutes. So Michael, turn it back over to you. Thank y'all. I enjoyed meeting you both.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it and the work that you're doing.
Thank you. And I don't know if you saw my comment in the chat, but thank you for sharing those 2 organizations.
Yes, you're welcome. If I think of anything else, I'll just send you an email.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank y'all. Excuse me, Zari and Ashley, for being here today. Thank you, Erin, for the presentation. That was really great. I know that it's beneficial to our organization, it's beneficial to us as an organization, the Alliance. Those of you on the call, Ashley and Zari, you are welcome to tell others that we will put this on our website. So for those folks who missed today, or for folks who didn't get the chance to register, a recording of this presentation will go up on our website under our webinars section, so people can view that and they're, as they're available to do that. So we'll share that out. But yeah, again, thank y'all for joining. This is what it takes to make good things happen, is people making important connections and learning about the good work that we're doing. So with that, I think everybody's free to go have 3 minutes back of your time and go enjoy a little bit of an early lunch. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Sounds
3
good.
minute early lunch.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good rest of your week.
You too. Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
She said bye too.
Right.
All right. Yay. Okay. I didn't want to ask for the picture because I didn't know Ashley was a new mom, and that can be real iffy. So
You didn't know who Ashley was.
Yeah. And it sounded like her baby was right there, and some people don't like their babies to be in pictures, so I didn't. It's fine.
It's okay. We'll get pictures. I mean, we've been getting pictures at all the community conversations and that sort of thing, and I'm sure you will be back for another presentation at some point. So we'll get a picture. We'll get pictures. We'll put together an album.
That would be amazing. But thank you again. Thank y'all for the invite, and thank you for running the slides. I know you didn't get to do your Lego puzzle. I mean, your Lego thing.
Hey, this was good to stimulating anyway, so I didn't need it.
Yeah,
I didn't pick off all my nails.
that's a plus. All right. Well,
Yeah, thank you. Seriously, that was good info. It's good to hear. Um, it's good to hear it kind of in whole. You know, I've heard bits and pieces of
mhm.
work, but it's good to hear in whole kind of what's going on. I think it's great and it's needed. The more connectivity we can have, it seems, at least to me, the better we are.
Yeah, and I know, like, yeah, trying to tell what we do in that little 1 minute introduction, I'm like, nobody knows. My mom even struggled. My cousin compares me to Tommy off of Martin. She's like, do you have a job? Because what do you do? But yeah, it's always a struggle to introduce what we do, like in an introductory way. Because I feel like the first community conversation, I talked too long, and then the second one, like nobody knows. But it's cool. I'm there. I'm listening. That's my main goal. So yeah. So this was a good opportunity.
Next time you do a webinar like this, you should just tell your family to
Right. Join.
Well, hello, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.